Hi, today we'll continue exploring XBFS file system on Xbox Series consoles. This is the raw partition that's on the SSD that that you need in order to boot the device. So this is a very important file, and my hope was to be able to save that file or to save that partition, keep it somewhere safe, and then a year later, 2 years later, whenever, if SSD fails, your original SSD fails, you can then get a new SSD drive, dump or copy that partition back to that SSD and have a functional device. Because obviously without that XBFS raw partition, I'll be referring to that as XBFS or a raw partition. It's the same. It's not actually a raw partition. There's XBFS file system there, but again, people tend to refer that as raw partition. But anyway, so this is that XBFS partition is kind of very important because without it, the Xbox won't boot at all. So yeah, that was my kind of original idea, and I can tell you already, it's bad news. I've done. I've been playing with this for a very long time, and I wasn't able to make it work. And the reason it doesn't work because every single update. So if you save that partition and you don't do any updates, then yes, you can recover, you can install any other disks and do whatever you want. But as soon as you install an update, even if it's exactly the same update, so if you do OSU update, so from the flash drive with the same version of the system, that partition will be modified, and one particular file that I will be talking about this today will be modified, and that's all. Your old or previous backup won't work, and that's all. Anyway, so I'll show you, I've created the XBFS tool, command line tool that kind of lists and deals with XBFS file system. I'll show you all that today. And if you want to do what I'm doing, you'll need obviously the Xbox and one of these. This is the NVMe adapter. I'll put the link in the description. This is obviously it has the kind of nice case, but I don't need that case because I'll be moving the cards back and forth. So anyway, so let's start. So first of all, I'll show you that this boots. So let me see, the light is on. Let me share this screen here. So obviously nothing is wrong here. The only wrong thing is that again I only have that partition on the SSD. But the important thing here, and if I do OSU on this now, it will work, no problem at all. The only problem now is again that this has no OSU, so this is just one partition. The important thing is that it boots. It clearly boots. You see the light, you see the output, fan spinning, and all that. So this works. Now let me power it off. I'll remove the SSD and I'll dump that XBFS partition from this SSD. This is a very important thing. Every time you do any update, and if you're trying to do what I'm doing, first of all, be very careful. You can brick your console, as I did in one of my previous videos. Just go back and, or I'll probably put a playlist somewhere here so you can have a look. So be very careful. I don't recommend you do that. If you want to, it's your risk, and you most likely will brick the console. But just one thing to make sure. Every time you do any update, everything you do, any OSU update, anything on the console, just copy that raw partition, because the only one that's usable is the one that's most recent update. So yeah, so I'll take that card out. I'll put it in my Linux machine, which sits right here. You can see it, and I'll dump the SSD with this to a drive, and I'll show you my tool in action. So I'll be back. So I removed the drive from here, put it in that adapter that's connected to my Linux machine. That's right there. You can see it, but what you can see is the terminal. So again, this is a Linux machine with that adapter. So let me we'll dump the XBFS partition, current XBFS partition and we'll see what's in there. So I'll create this directory where I'll dump that. So first of all, lsblk, that will tell you what drive it is. So this is that Xbox, so 420 gig and 1 gig XBFS partition. So let's do that. So dd /dev sda1 output file is xbfs.image, and block size, let's do 4096. Is that okay? With dd, just again, don't do this at home. You can break your console, but if you decide to do this, be careful. Every single step is important. First of all, always keep your original or your current XBFS. Whatever you do, whatever update you do, make a copy, make a dump of XBFS, because that can save your day and your console. With dd, you can very easily overwrite your XBFS partition. So again, be very careful what parameters you put in here. So let's copy that. So let's dump the, and again, you need to have root permissions. So like that, shouldn't take too long. There it is. So if you go here, you can see XBFS has been extracted. This is 1 megabyte file. So clear the screen again, do ls xbfs.image. So what you can do now, XBFS tool, first of all, you can download it from GitHub. I'll put the link in the description. And let me just go back here because I already have it here. So you go back, and if you clone your if you clone the GitHub repository, it's just pure kind of C. So it should compile on Mac, it should compile on Linux, it should compile even on Windows. You probably will need to make some adjustments when it comes to directories because of / versus /. But anyway, it's not idiot proof. So you either use it exactly as I'm showing you, or it just won't work. So yeah, it's not idiot proof. But just compile it, just do make, and then you have your file there. So that's the output file. And then copy it somewhere to your path. So say /usr local /bin or something like that, wherever you can access it. I already have it. So let's go back to YouTube. And again, clear the screen again, so you can see more. And XBFS tool, if you just do this, it will show you 3 particular usage patterns that you will do. So first of all, list the information. What's in this file? So let's do that. XBFS tool -i, info, -f, and that's the input file. -f is always input file, which is this. And there you go. That's exactly what's in your XBFS partition. So first of all, the header of that file system is at this offset. Doesn't really matter. All these are kind of meaningful, have some purpose. Most important here is this sequence number, and there should be boot.bin somewhere here. There it is, and this is the key, and I'll come back to that later. Sequence number, it decrements every time you do update. So whether you do OSU, whether you do kind of update on the system, live system, changes every single time it decrements. If you do say 3 OSUs, same OSU, if you do it 3 times, this sequence number will decrement every single time, and it has to be. I think it's also stored somewhere in the fuses, so it has to match whatever you have. If I change this in that partition, just this, it won't boot. So this is very important. You need to, if you modify this file, or if you use some other file or XBFS, which you can do, I'll explain it in a minute, you need to always put that sequence numbers to be exactly the same. But again, we'll go back to that later. So these are the files. So in order to extract those files, you do XBFS, let me remind myself. So you do XBFS tool, -f, again, XBFS image, input file, and then output minus extract, and the output directory. Let's do files. And then if you do ls, you'll see we have a directory files. If we go there, you'll see all excuse me, you'll see all these files here. Obviously, these are a binary format. Most of them are encrypted, so you'll need some sort of hex viewer to look at those and play with those. But this XBFS tool will take care of most of the scenarios. So now, the important files here, I'll go back here because it's easier to look at. The files that are specific to your console, your particular console, are, sorry, it's sequence number, obviously. All this SPS, that's security processor configuration. Boot.bin, which again I can find it now, there, boot.bin. Update.cfg, sorry, update is not specific to a console, sorry. So boot.bin, and then one more thing, os_glob cfg. So sp underscore whatever, os_glob, so sps underscore s and all that, boot.bin, and that's it. And all this spd, sps, sps, os, sorry, this one is not specific to the console. You can, in theory, you could take another XBFS from another Xbox, copy those files, extract those files from that other XBFS, take your files, inject them to that other XBFS, put it on your drive, and it will work. But again, you have to have these files, and it would all be fine, and obviously you need sequence number. It would all be fine, but there's one particular thing, one file, boot.bin, which is specific to your device, your Xbox, and the version that you're currently on. So you can't use boot.bin from your console from previous version because it won't work. Again, this boot.bin, this is also another file system actually embedded. So this, I think, has two bootloaders here, and probably one of those bootloaders checks for either sequence number or the version that's stored in your fuses, like hardware fuses in the processor, and it just won't work. And that's the only reason I can see now why you can't take your previous image and use it in your current Xbox, because this file will break it. It just won't boot, and I'll show you that in a minute. So, for example, what we can do, I can say change these files in this file system. So, for example, if I take my existing image, what I can do, I can inject files from some other image. So I have a few images here, so let's go back here, and I have, say, this one. So this is my console from one of the previous updates. So if I change here, and if I do exact same thing, so if I extract this, where is that command? There. So same thing, and again you will see that you will know that it came from the same console because UUID is exactly the same. So if you go back here, UUID is BD0A at the end. It's exactly the same. Obviously this the sequence number is different. So this is FC, this was FA. So there was one update in between those two. So this is not most recent update. There was one more, I guess, from what I can see. Excuse me, and I don't remember. I've done so many updates on this console that I lost track. The SHA or the checksum will be different, obviously, and it is because header has changed. The sequence number has changed. Layout version and format version are always the same as far as I know. I had a look at Series X as well. It's the same. So this doesn't change, or at least not often. And again, a few files are different. So if we do diff files and then YouTube files. So as you can see, header obviously is different. This is just the header, image of the header. So don't worry about this. Never used header. Boot.bin, as I said, is different. OSD, OSGlob, SP, files and update and update. So these are different between the two updates. So actually SPS is also different. This is interesting. But anyway, but what we can do now, let's just, yeah, what I'll do, I'll use this image. So again, this is from one of the previous updates. So I'll take this image, I'll inject all these files into this image, and I'll copy it back to my console, and you'll see that it will boot. So let's do it. I'll just remind myself of the syntax. So XBFS tool, input file. So we want to modify this file again from one of the previous updates, and then -j. Input directory is where, or -j. So this is where the files that I want to inject are. So in my case, it will be YouTube files. And then I need to change sequence number, because again, in the old one, FC, that won't work. I need current one, which is FA. So -S0 FA, this is hex. And then I need to list all these files that I want to take from this directory and inject it into my current, or into this one. So we'll take boot.bin, we'll take OSD CFG, we'll take OSGlob CFG, we'll take security processor configuration. I don't know why this has changed. This usually doesn't change, but in this case it did. And we'll change update. So all these files will be injected into current image. So as you can see, it just tells you what it does. So injecting. Then now the update, each update file has different UUID. So, and that UUID is also stored in the header. So as you can see, previous update was 152, and in this case, update was F1BB, whatever it is. So it will also update that update UUID, because if it's different, so if your update UUID in your header is different than update UUID in actual update file, it won't boot. So that has to be modified, and again, this tool takes care of that. So obviously, new sequence number, which we used, and then new checksum. So if we go ahead, if we take a look here, we can see we have xbfs.image.out. And now let's just do one kind of experiment just to prove that these files are actually have been injected into this file. So let's do the same thing. So let's extract these files. This time we'll use input file, this is the out file, and files.out. So it extracted it. As you can see, update UUID has changed. It's changed in the header. So this was in the file, so it also changed it in the header. The UUID is the same, new sequence number, and we should have files out here. So we have files and files out. So let's compare these two. So diff files out. And as you can see, all these files that we've injected are different. Now, if we do diff files out with files from my current version, so youtube.files, you see, identical. So now these two, so now this file is exactly the same as my existing one. So just to prove that it works, let's just dump this file or save this file to my SSD. So dd input file is this, output file is /dev/sda1, block size 4096, and we need sudo. This overwrites your SSD, so this is a very dangerous step. Okay, so let me get rid of this. Actually, no. Actually, yes, we can do that. So we can take out this from my Linux machine. I'll quickly remove that, put it back here, so you can see it's actually this. This SSD. I'll flip it over gently, carefully, like that. Put it right here. Powered on. So I'll plug the. Sorry for my chair. I know it's bad. So it's plugged in. I don't use this because I don't want to destroy it. So anyway, let me just put the output here. So let's start. Let's see what happens. So sorry, we have light. Fan is spinning. And it booted perfectly fine. So as you can see, I can actually use my previous update, inject some files in it. I'll power it off. And again, this is not a problem. What you see on the screen here, right there, is not a problem. It boots. And it will, if I do OSU, it will do OSU and it will work perfectly fine. So that's what we want, that the device boots. Now let me show you an example where it doesn't boot. So I'll turn it off. I'll take the card out again. So I'll put the card back in my adapter there. This adapter is, excuse me, this adapter is nice because you don't have to do any screws or anything. Just put it back here and it's there. So I'll plug it in back to my Linux machine. So as you can see, it's up. Let me share my terminal window again. So this is our current image there. So let me just show you one thing. So if I take update file from, actually let's go back to, because this is the same as my YouTube, so existing one, it's just less file here. So now let me do an experiment. Let me take this file, this image, and inject update files from previous version. And let's see if it will work. So again, XBFS tool, I can't remember. There. So I'll just inject update files from there. So update to and update, and we'll inject them from after OSU2. So this is the direct/files. And again, sequence number is the same. It didn't change. We didn't do any updates. So this should work. So again, as you can see, detected update, new update UID, or old update UID, which was in previous versions. Sequence number the same. Updated the checksum. So we should have XBFS image out. Again, just to prove that, XBFS tool -f XBFS image.out. So this one that we just created, and -extract files.out. As you can see, 152, this is new update. Excuse me. Sequence number, very important, the same. And we do diff files and files out. And the only difference is update and update to. Obviously header, again, don't touch header. This is just the image of the header, and the header has changed because we've changed the update UID, and because of that we had to recalculate checksum. So again, we have the current image with injected update files from previous version, and now we'll dump this to the SSD and see if it boots. So ls-blk again, just to make sure. SDA1 still. So dd input file is xbfs image.out. Output file is /dev/sda1, and block size 4096, and we need sudo done. So let's try it again now. I'll remove that. I'll disconnect from the machine. I'll put it back here. Okay, so you can see the light. I'll plug it back in, and again at the socket. So it's in. Let me share the screen. So everything is in. Let me power it on. See the light here. Light stays on. Fan is spinning. We should see the picture. There you go. So we used update files from previous version, and it still boots. And we can still do update. If I put the OSU drive, USB stick in here, and do the update, do troubleshoot, and go and do the offline system update, it will work, no problem. So this works. And again, most of the files that you inject will work. Let me power it off. With one exception. And that exception is boot.bin. So let me power it off and unplug this. And remove the card again. I'll put it back in my adapter. Plug it back in. Sorry for my chair again. Let me share the terminal window. So we've changed the update files in here. So let's do one more thing. Let's inject boot.bin from previous version to this one, and you will see it won't even boot. So let me just remove this files.out. So I'll just use exactly the same thing. Actually, yeah, or I'll use the original one. Doesn't really matter. Let's use this one just to be sure. So I'll just rename it to say xbfs.image.update changed. That should do it. So now let's inject the boot bin from previous version. So exact same thing here, and we'll just inject boot.bin, and obviously we'll use our current image, which was, where did I rename it? There. So we'll inject boot.bin into this file right there. Injected right there. So we have new file. So this is new file. And again, just to prove the fact, let's do XBFS tool -f, this one, and -extract and files.out. And again, if we do diff files and files.out, you see the update obviously is different because that's what we've updated recently. So these two are from that previous version and boot.bin. So this is what has changed right now. So again, let's put this back onto the card, onto the drive, and you'll see it won't work. So what I'll do, I'll just reuse my command here, but we'll use different file. Excuse me. So this one. And again, it shouldn't take long. Done. So let me get rid of terminal. So I'll take out this drive from here, put it back into the Xbox, just like that. Just flip it over so you can see. There's not much to see really, because you'll see the light that just goes off and on. So it's plugged in, and I won't even bring up the output, because what you will see is just this. Just listen. Gone. So it behaves exactly as if it had kind of foreign or different SSD drive. So again, this is the key file that you need. So let me share that iTerm again. Actually, let's just try one more thing. I hope it's not boring, but probably is. But let's just assume that this boot.bin file has the sequence number encoded in it or encrypted in it somehow. So I actually didn't try that before. I tried pretty much every other scenario, all the other files, I tried everything, and result is exactly the same. But before I get to my conclusion, let's try that one thing one last time. So the drive is plugged in again, and I don't need to do anything really. I just want to change the sequence number. So we'll do the inject thing, but we won't be injecting anything. And FC, that was my previous, or the sequence number from the XBFS file that this boot image came from. So let's just do this. So as you can see, new sequence is right here. So let's, and again, the file is this one, I believe. So which file did I use to change it? Oh no, it's not this one. So we need to use this one. So sorry, .out. I need to use the most recent one with that boot.bin, with new boot.bin. So this one, see, there. And again, we have this. So let's extract those files. So XBFS tool minus file, this one, and minus extract directory will be, say, let's file out.out. Just two. And you can see FC. So this has changed, and boot.bin will be different than current one. So we will do diff files.out.out, and then actually files. So the original one that was here. Files. So as you can see, update, that's what we changed. And why is boot.bin not this? No, let's try files.out. File, yeah. Okay, so boot.bin here is different. Okay, let's inject that boot.bin again, just to make sure. So what I'll do the same thing here, but I'll inject boot.bin. So now if we extract these files again, and if we do diff, come on, where are you? Files out, files, there. So update, boot.bin, and the sequence number. So right now sequence number is exactly the same as that boot bin. So again, if the theory is right, which I'm sure it isn't, actually let me just so if the theory is right, if boot bin is tied to sequence number, then it should boot now, right? But I'm sure it won't, and I'll explain why later. So let's dump that. So dd most recent file was which one? Out.out, I think. Why is it so slow? This one. So input file, output file /def/sda1, log size 4096. Yeah. And we need sudo. Shouldn't take long. Okay, done. So let me get rid of the terminal. Unplug that. Put it back in. Okay. Plug it back in. Okay, so give it a moment. And again. And it's off. And it's off. So I'll flip it over. I'll remove the card again and I'll put the original one. Where is the screw? I lost the screw. Oh no, the screw is here. Sorry, I'm taking it out. Yeah. Sorry. So I'll put it back in here. I need coffee, apparently. So I'll get back in. And what I'll do now, first of all, I'll share the terminal window. So I'll just dump the original XBFS to the drive. Image. Yep. So in a few seconds, done. Let's take it out. I just need to make sure and show you that it will boot now. Again, it will boot. I can use the original one, the one that I had, because I didn't do any updates. So sequence number didn't change, boot.bin didn't change, anything else could essentially change, and it will still boot. So just like that. Let me plug it back in. And do I need anything? Yeah, I need this. So let's power it on. Light stays on. The fans spinning, and there you go. So and then now obviously I can run OSU and do OSU, and the console will be perfectly fine. So conclusion. Let me just power it off first. So the conclusion of all this is that, let me just go back to terminal, is that unfortunately, let's go back to here. There's a few things that the Xbox is verifying before it even boots to that recovery screen. First of all, sequence number has to be exact. So exactly one that you've used after last update. This, if anything else, if that was the only thing, then that would be perfectly fine. You could potentially guess what the sequence number is, or you could try, as many times as you finally get to that, like, 10 updates maybe, so 10 tries, and it will be okay. But unfortunately, that's not only it. That's not the only measure that they're using. boot.bin, again, this is another file system, like mini file system embedded there, and it has bootloaders there. And I'm pretty sure these bootloaders also verify sequence number and also verify fuses, hardware fuses in the CPU. And unfortunately, this boot.bin file is specific to your console and to your exact fuse configuration, or how many updates you did so far. And unfortunately, I don't see a way, and it is obviously encrypted. I'm not sure which keys are used. Are these, if these are the console specific? I wouldn't say so. I'd say these are probably Microsoft keys, or maybe console specific. I don't know. So unfortunately, yeah, to me that's the end. I don't know what to do now, because again, you can't modify fuses obviously in the CPU, and you can't even see what their configuration is. And unfortunately, they must be somehow embedded. That information must be embedded in boot.bin. So this boot.bin, one of these bootloaders that's in here, is most likely verifying fuses, and it just won't boot. So again, that's bad news, because we can't take a backup from this console or from any other console and make it work. Because if you did any updates on the way, so between that backup that you did and now that your, say, SSD failed, if you did any backups, you won't have that boot.bin file, unfortunately. So you can't reuse that backup. You can reuse it for as long as you didn't do any updates. But if you do any update, you can't, because sequence number will change and something inside here will also change, and that's it. So yeah, I spent a long time on it, and that's where I am. Obviously, feel free to experiment. Again, my experience, and I bricked one Xbox. Be very careful. So always have your current XBFS backup, because you can always go back. If you lose it or if you overwrite it, then it's game over. If you keep this backup, you can do whatever you want as long as you don't update. You can always go back to that as long as you don't update. If you do update, so let's say if one of these works, whatever you did works, and you go and run the OSU, it will change boot.bin and it will change sequence number, and then your backup XBFS won't work. So you need to do another backup. So always have most recent backup, XBFS backup, and then it's safe. You can do whatever you want. You can always go back. Again, it's all at your risk. I recommend not doing this because you can, and you most likely will, brick a console because you forget something on the way, you forget to do backup, you overwrite that backup, you lose that backup, and you're done. That's game over for your console. So yeah. So the story, that's again, as I said, that's the end of it for me. That's the end of the road. Apparently, if your SSD fails and you can't recover XBFS, you need to go and do a very costly repair at Microsoft. You can't just take some other SSD from, say, faulty Xbox and copy that XBFS. So, yeah. Sorry for bad news, but it is what it is. Please like and subscribe if you like my videos. And again, I'll move to something else next time. For now, the Xbox is going back to the shell, and I'll play some games on it. Thank you very much.